Hi, I'm Dan Cortopassi. Today I'm reviewing an HO scale 4664 early Challenger locomotive from Athearn. My model is part of the Athearn Genesis line and represents a Union Pacific CSA-1 class early Challenger. Athearn offers these locomotives with detail and paint variations to match several CSA-1 and CSA-2 class Union Pacific locomotives. Athearn also offers these engines in two different UP paint schemes and with several different pilots to match specific locomotives. This model is available in two versions. The DCC Ready model has an MSRP of $529.98. The version with LoCSound DCC and sound installed is $629.98. Mine is the version with sound. I paid $535.48 for it at a popular online retailer. We'll start the engine out at 100 points and see how it does. The model comes in a large cardboard box like most other Genesis steam offerings. Inside is a manual and some warranty information. The engine and tender are in separate plastic boxes surrounded by protective foam. Each plastic box has an outer sleeve that slides off. The inside of the box unfolds to reveal the model, which is wrapped in more flexible protective plastic. My model had a couple of issues as it came out of the box. The fireman's side walkway was detached. Putting it back on was fairly simple, but I had to be careful to get some of the delicate plastic plumbing pieces in the right places before pressing the tabs back into their slots in the boiler. The engineer's side grab iron at the rear corner of the cab was loose. Getting this back on was also tricky because it's bent so that the spacing between the ends of the grab iron and the holes in the model is not quite the same. I got it in, then it popped out, so I tried another time and used some CA glue to secure it. The grab iron is springy, so I can see it would be very easy to have it launch itself across the room, never to be seen again. These were not huge issues, but I don't think any issues are acceptable on a model this expensive, so I'm taking 5 points. Otherwise, the packaging seems like it should do a good job protecting the model. The manual contains prototype information, exploded view drawings, parts lists, and information on the LoCSound DCC decoder with full throttle features. The UP Challengers were built starting in the mid-1930s. My model represents Union Pacific 3802, class CSA-1 4664 with an oil tender and cast pilot. I was not able to find any photos of UP 3802, but I did find photos of several other Challengers in the same number series. Aside from some minor differences in piping, something which often varies a little even among steam engines in the same class, the model appears to be very accurate. The paint on the model is evenly applied and thin enough not to obscure detail. All of the markings are crisp and opaque, and I didn't see any voids. All of the piping that I can see on the sides of the locomotive is freestanding, as are the handrails. One really neat thing is the way the steam pipes move with the front engine as it swivels. Very cool. Both engines on the model pivot, unlike many real articulateds where only the front engine is movable and the rear one is fixed, a concession to the tighter curves on most model train layouts. The tender has a lot of neat rivet detail. In front, the locomotive has a movable bell, which is neat. The marker lights are non-functional. The headlight housing has tiny engine numbers on the sides and a larger number plate below. There are more freestanding grab irons. The high-mounted number boards light up, though on my model one is noticeably crooked and resisted my attempts to straighten it. I'm taking 5 points for that. There is an uncoupling lever, but the front coupler on the engine is a dummy. It swivels open just like the prototype. The dummy coupler can be replaced with a working coupler if desired. The rear of the locomotive has freestanding corner grabs. The cab interior has nice backhead detail. There are more freestanding grab irons on the front of the tender. In back, the tender has delicate ladders, 2 working lights, uncoupling levers, air hoses, and pilot steps. On top, the engine has an open smokestack. The model will accept a smoke unit, but no smoke unit is installed. The domes and other detail on top of the boiler look really good. I really like the openable doors atop the cab. The tender has nice hatch detail on top as well as more freestanding grab irons and other small parts. Underneath the engine has less detail, but what can be seen while the model is on the track looks great. All 6 drive axles are powered and pick up current. There are traction tires on the second driver on the front engine and the last driver on the rear engine. After some testing, I found that the traction tires made the electrical pickup less reliable on those axles. The bottom of the tender has some minimal brake system detail. Again, it's enough to look good on the track. All of the tender wheels pick up current. Before operating the model, the engine and tender have to be connected. The electrical plug in the locomotive fits into a receptacle on the tender. Then the plastic drawbar on the locomotive slides into the tender and snaps into place. The coupler on the rear of the tender is low, so I'm taking 5 points for that. I didn't evaluate the front of the engine since it has no working coupler installed. The forward wheel set on the trailing truck is narrow in gauge and it tends to fall out when the model is handled. I haven't run the model enough to know if this will be a problem long term. The wheels worked fine on my test track. 4 out of the 6 tender wheel sets are narrow in gauge. With so many out-of-gauge wheel sets, I'm taking the maximum 15-point deduction. Neither the engine nor the tender has any noticeable body wobble, which is great. The wheel pickups on the tender produce enough drag to act as a brake, so this may reduce the pulling power of the locomotive slightly. Even so, the pulling power is impressive. I registered 11.2 ounces of drawbar pull on my force gauge. By way of comparison, an average HO scale diesel usually produces about 2.5 ounces. The engine weighs 24.9 ounces and the tender weighs 8.2. I really like that Athearn used LEDs for the lighting on this model. The headlight is activated with the F0 key on your DCC controller and is directional. The tender backup light is also directional and activated with F0. In addition, there is a red backup light that is activated with the F5 key. The bell is activated with F1. F2 blows the whistle. F3 is used for a short whistle, though with ESU decoders I found that this isn't really necessary as the length of the toot varies depending on how long you hold down F2. The decoder produces a bunch of other sounds as well. The volume is lower than some other models I've heard. For my taste it's fine since too many loud engines on a layout can get annoying and I tend to turn my models down anyway, but some people may find the lack of volume disappointing. I've installed a lot of ESU decoders and I know that they're capable of higher volume, so it likely has to do with the speaker choice and enclosure design. The model runs very smoothly without any hesitation or binding that I could see. So let's take a look at what we've got. My model had some loose parts when I took it out of the box, so I deducted 5 points in the packaging category. One of the number boards was crooked, so I deducted 5 points in the paint and detail category. Finally, the tender coupler was low and there were multiple out-of-gauge wheel sets, so I deducted 20 points in the standards and operation category. That leaves us with a total of 70 out of 100 possible points, which would be a C- on a report card. The wheel gauge and coupler issues are not difficult to fix, but I still think that this model has a lot of issues for the price, so I'm giving it a yellow signal. This is a nice looking and nice running model of a Union Pacific steam engine. If you're a fan of big UP steam and you're willing to overlook or fix the problems, you might like this model. On the other hand, it's very expensive, and if you don't want to buy something that you have to fix, you might want to pass on it.